If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.
Very much in 18th century prose. And so it was not, well, I guess inspiring because the response was overwhelming. It was not really conducive to the 21st century understanding. So what I did after that was to develop this resolution, which, for one thing, is crafted to really address transgressions by the federal government as it exists now, and to do it in a manner that is conducive to the 21st century mind, if you will, a more staccato type of format, where HCR 6 was just a series of, the whereas, the statements of condition, and then it's the conclusion, a series of therefore, so you didn't have the close connection. This is reorganized so that you have one or more whereases and then a conclusion, and then another group of whereases and then a conclusion, and so it's more readable to the way we think now. The last thing, now this was introduced in the 2011-2012 session. It did not, the Senate rejected it. It passed the House, it was rejected by the Senate. I reintroduced it as an HR, so it only required House passage, and it passed the House again. Next term, 2013-2014, it did not pass, and it did not pass last term. The only substantial change compared to the last times I have introduced it is that there is a more explicit statement regarding martial law. And the reason I made a more explicit statement regarding martial law is my increased understanding of martial law and who can in fact declare it. And the fact that there is no delegation to the government of the United States to declare martial law within the states. That is a power generally reserved specifically and exclusively to the legislatures of the states. So in New Hampshire, only the legislature of New Hampshire has the power to declare martial law. And that is a very important distinction. Now, can you have martial law other than that way? Well, yes, because martial law is the condition of a battlefield. And for instance, during World War II, I would say probably pretty much exclusively coastal states were declared battlefields, de facto battlefields, and the federal government did impose martial law in those states. But it's also important to understand what martial law is. What happened in Boston after the Boston Marathon bombing was not martial law. That was civilian law, because the individuals patrolling the streets, requiring people to stay in their houses, were not soldiers. They were police, they were civilians. And that's a distinction that we are rapidly losing. In martial law, it is when the military, whether it be state or federal, is in fact the first enforcer of the law. If you don't see soldiers out there as the first enforcers, it's not martial law. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions? Representative Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for my question. You made a statement saying it passed the House once, and it did not pass the next two sessions. When it passed once, was anything implemented? Anything happened?
No. The short answer is no. First, it passed the House twice. First as an HCR, which failed in the Senate, and then as a House HR, which did not require Senate concurrence. No, this does not, in fact, change. It's not a law. So there's nothing, quote unquote, enforceable in it. It is a statement of position informing the government of the United States, that we are watching, that we believe that they are exceeding their delegated authority, and if they do so in a manner that affects us directly, we will react accordingly.
Further questions?
Thank you. Yeah, while you were speaking, I was actually looking up the definition of martial law, and the law applied in occupied territory by the military authority of the occupying power. The law administered by the military force that is invoked by a government in emergency when the civilian law enforcement agencies are unable to maintain public order and safety. Is that what happened in Louisiana? Why, when they took guns and... because
That would be arguably so. Whether or not the Louisiana legislature or the constitutional authority empowered to do so actually declared martial law, I don't know. But for the federal government to do it absent of a declared war is in fact a declaration of war upon the state, because they can't get there without a state of war.
Okay, thank you for taking my question, by the way. But anyways, while you were talking, I made a note under which is under Article 28A, under the mandate clause that we have in the New Hampshire Constitution, unfunded mandates. Don't we bring a lot of this stuff on to ourselves in the state, especially the schools, by accepting carrots or money from the federal government with the strings attached that we comply and it ends up being unfunded and we eat it here in New Hampshire? Because I was reading a section between 19 and 23.
I have to say, I can't see that. I can't see us accepting a condition that submitted us to martial law via that route.
No, I'm in another hearing, not martial law.
Okay.
I'm talking on, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I'm in another area talking about New Hampshire Constitution on Article 28A, unfunded mandates. That part of there it talks about in section, on page 2, 13 to, 15 to 18, whereas the Constitution of the United States having delegated Congress the power to punish, wait, I'm in the wrong area, I'm sorry. I lost my place where I was reading. Therefore, all acts of Congress, the orders of the executive or orders of the judiciary of the United States of America, which assume to create, define, or punish crimes other than those who are enumerated in the Constitution. What I'm bringing up here would popped in my head. We're accepting all this federal carrots, money.
There are certain elements that we accept, that effectively by contract we accept by taking the money. That is correct. But there are also other areas where there are federal laws purporting to restrict our activities that are not a matter of taking money. If we've taken money that is conditionally accepted, that you comply with the law, then for good or for ill, we've done that.
Ladies, we have a little trouble hearing the man over here because it's getting too loud. Sorry, go right ahead.
Well, I was fairly well concluded. If we've accepted money that obligates us to certain actions, then that's what we've done, but that's not what we're talking about.
Representative Dixie, I'm trying to read the bill. I'm trying to figure out the effect of it. And the only way I can do it is go back into history and see when, in the case of, during the Eisenhower administration, when I think President Eisenhower nationalized the Arkansas National Guard for that caused the high school in Little Rock, Arkansas to be desegregated. And now, do you feel, based upon this law, was Eisenhower's action during that a proper application and a legal application of the Constitution?
At the very least, it was treading on the bare edge. I would say it was definitely questionable. But then again, if you look at the National Guard, we've accepted money, we have entered into agreement where we accept federalization of the National Guard in exchange for money. So, I mean, that would require a lot of self-examination. You'd have to really look at it. So I'm not prepared to say that it was or was not lawful, but it was certainly walking the edge.
The answer is, I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah, I have a follow on it. In the case there, where we had what seems to me, the federal law was in direct contradiction of the local, maybe not the law, but the local culture and practice. All right? So in that case, Eisenhower set in or nationalized the Arkansas National Guard for the purposes of implementing the federal law.
And Arkansas had, prior to that, accepted that premise and received money in exchange for it.
Okay,
Same answer. Follow on.
the follow-on I have is, if Arkansas had not accepted money for their National Guard, would Eisenhower's nationalization of the Arkansas National Guard, based upon your resolution, would that have been legal?
In a general sense, I would have to say no, but I don't know why Arkansas would have surrendered that authority over their National Guard without being given something in return.
Representative Good, roll call.
As a point of clarification, am I correct in understanding that this resolution as a resolution does not make anything legal or illegal? It simply expresses one view of the federal and state relations, which people may agree with or may not agree with, but this does not actually change the federal and state scheme, which is based on the federal Constitution and the New Hampshire Constitution and the interrelationship between the two.
That is very accurate. Thank you.
She does say a lot.
And
She does it all the time.
teacher?
Go ahead.
No. Well, and the other thing that I would point out is it does urge us to confer with our other states in the last paragraph, that we urge our co-states to charge one of the committees with the duty of communicating the proceedings of its legislature in regard to the government of the United States to the corresponding committees of the other state legislatures. Talk to each other.
But again, there
It's a recommendation.
no legal status here, nothing happened.
can't
no
force
laws are
anybody to do
passed,
anything.
but you're just trying to make everybody informed all around the country. Representative Fitty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not to, I guess, confuse the situation, but if we are to affirm this, is this kind of setting up the precipice to, since we're acknowledging state sovereignty throughout North America here, that we're setting ourselves up to then be privy to the Constitutional Convention process, or that we'd be more open to it? Is that what we're trying to accomplish here?
No. This is a corollary to our Article 7, to the nature of the powers being delegated to the federal government. The federal government the government of the United States doesn't exist unless there are states. It is not this kind of ethereal thing hanging out there. In a sense, it exists at our pleasure, so to speak. It's something that we have agreed to along with the other states. It's has been tried once, but you know, it isn't self-created. It's the Constitution for the United States. New Hampshire is self-created by the people that live here. The Constitution of New Hampshire.
Representative Baldessaro.
Yeah, it goes back to my question, which I was hoping to get answered, that was, this here we bring a lot of this onto ourselves by accepting monies in education and other, and we know, I used, for instance, which I was against No Child Left Behind, good concept, but there was no money supporting that, and it put the burdens, and we accepted it, like other stuff there. So, by us sending this here, we're basically saying, enough is enough. This is the state's position, just like you just said, but we have to educate the rest of the state on stop taking federal money that have no funding behind it.
Well,
it's costing us.
And your question, then?
My question is, if it's not in the federal government's purview, then they should be not coming, we should be standing up and saying no to communities and the state.
Well, I would agree with you, we should, but we don't. So this would not affect those areas in which we have accepted the quid pro quo. Because we've accepted the quid pro quo.
Representative Willis.
Just, Representative, so you might be interested to know, or I guess this is a what do you believe? There's a federal law, 10 U.S.C. 12406, that specifically authorizes the president to nationalize the National Guard. It has nothing to do with accepting money from the feds. It's by federal statute that controls the Guard. And it's got 3 different things that they can do it, and one is basically in danger of invasion. The other one is if there's a rebellion against the authority of the government. So the point being that in that case, it has nothing to do with accepting federal money.
Point taken. On the other hand, that same group of statutes, if not that statute, authorizes the state to have a separate and distinct military force, the state guard. It's the DIC Act. 1913.
Seeing no further questions. Oops, sorry. Representative
Okay, thank you.
You're holding the corner over there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Representative Issy. You mentioned Article 7 of our Constitution, that's the sovereignty.
Correct.
And I thank you for bringing that up because our Constitution preempts the United States Constitution by several years. And New Hampshire has the celebrity of ratifying that under a condition, and the condition that New Hampshire's ratification of that document was because they agreed to put in the Second Amendment. And I wanted to bring that up because the Second Amendment is the only amendment that protects all the others. And I thank you if you want to make some comments on that. Sovereignty is the issue. And we were sovereign before the United States government was created.
Well, and that's an interesting aspect. The comment, I guess you have to say, that was used to justify the Civil War was that of perpetual union. That doesn't exist in the Constitution of the United States. It's in the Articles of Confederation, and the Articles of Confederation themselves explicitly recognize the sovereignty and independence of the states. Both the explicit sovereignty and independence of the states and the perpetual union were removed when we transitioned to the Constitution for the United States. Not only did we have Article 7 in our second state constitution, 1784, but we also have it in our Constitution ratified in 1792. Coming out of the Convention of 1791, there were over 100 amendments to our state constitution, and it was considered so extensive that they didn't simply ratify the amendments, but they re-ratified the entire document.
Going a little far afield.
Well, no, because that issue of state sovereignty was ratified by the people both before and after the Constitution for the United States as we know it today.
Seeing no further questions, thank you, Representative Itzel. I have a card from William Neighbors.
I'd like to speak today about the idea of state sovereignty and the need for New Hampshire independence.
Could you identify yourself, please?
I am William Neighbors from Manchester, New Hampshire.
Why don't you take a seat?
Good. We have. I'd first like to address the issue that was brought up. Is it Baldessaro?
Yes.
Okay. Of taking federal money with strings attached. I would first like to say that those contracts are null and void. They are illegal. They are not authorized. In the Constitution, the Congress and all federal powers are granted enumerated rights. They do not have the right to put those strings, to attach those strings, or to even take that money in the first place in the way that they do. So, therefore, any agreement with them that violates that is, even in a legal sense, far more in a moral sense, illegal and null and void. The feds have become a Frankenstein's monster of sorts. Yes, they were, as was previously stated, they were created by the states, or at least by the ruling powers of those states. But it has become a controlling beast. It has turned on what was supposed to be its master. The feds, now they steal, kill, destroy, and lie. They are reprobate beasts who no good man would have anything to do with.
Okay, name calling won't be any good here. Just refer to the bill and why you're in favor of it.
I'm in favor of it because the New Hampshire Constitution has a right of revolution expressed within it. And the federal government has become a villainous beast. It is dangerous and totalitarian at this point. There are so many laws on the federal books that one man could not read them in a lifetime, let alone 4. It is insane. And that cannot stand. Therefore, a stand must be taken. And this bill does not provide those means, but it is a step in that direction. It is recognizing the sovereignty of the state so that I support it as a first step towards New Hampshire secession. The Fed, like as I said, the Feds did first exist at the pleasure of the states, but they have taken control. They have overstepped their bounds and must be put in their place.
Representative Baldessaro.
Yeah, I understand fully where you're coming from, because as Representative Weber said, this is a resolution. Of course, it's not a bill or a law or anything like that. Representative Walsh brought up a question earlier concerning U.S. Code federal law. This is what this is about. The federal government overreached and took control of our militia, our military. The U.S. Constitution establishes a military by the U.S. Constitution, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, they established. The states established by the Constitution their own National Guard. Through the money of paying 50% of our National Guard here and buying all our equipment, we've now become contracted with the federal government through law, overstepping their reach.
Come to the question.
So my question to you is, do you agree with what I just said? Okay. Concerning the laws that's in place.
I agree that it's happened, but I believe that to be constitutionally, both the New Hampshire Constitution and federal Constitution to be illegal. I don't think that those strings are at all allowed. In fact, do substantial harm. I'm originally from Washington State, and I remember when Montana had no speed limits on the highways. And I remember what happened after the feds imposed, more or less forced it on them. Fatalities went through the roof. Like a lot of people died because the feds wanted to look good.
Okay, I think they did have a speed limit. It was called reasonable and proper.
Right, but it wasn't a set thing.
Were there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to hear from Ian Freeman.
Good afternoon. I'm Ian Freeman. I'm one of the co-chairs of the New Hampshire Liberty Party, which is a political party set up to promote the ideas not just of freedom, but also freedom from the United States government, and New Hampshire declaring its independence from that organization. I support the bill or the resolution, but ultimately don't think it goes far enough. As a resolution, it doesn't really hold any weight besides just saying what we as the legislature think. Would like to ultimately see something like a constitutional amendment, some sort of ballot provision to let the people of New Hampshire weigh in on whether or not they want to continue in this particular arrangement with the federal government. As some of the previous speakers have indicated, there's a lot of frustration out there with the size and the scope, the intrusiveness and the expense of the federal government. It was also pointed out all of these agreements that the state has gotten into in return for some sort of a handout from the feds. But I think it's also important to point out that I believe New Hampshire is what's called a donor state, meaning that taxpayers from New Hampshire actually give more money to the federal government than they receive back in all these various different subsidies and grants and so on. So ultimately, were we to exit this union, that would actually mean more money staying here in the people of New Hampshire's wallets and people of New Hampshire's bank accounts, thereby empowering our state and improving the level of freedom that we have here. And I would just, ask you all to consider on your own time why it is that we are still in this arrangement. What is really the benefit to the people of New Hampshire to be with the federal government? So again, I think that this takes a step in the right direction, and I support that.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions? I've got another pink card. Thank you very much. Clarence Gardner.
Hello, I'm Clarence Gardner from Manchester. I'm in support of the resolution. My understanding of it is basically it's just a reconfirmation of why we entered the union anyway. But I wanted to point out that the United States Code was brought up. I don't want to put words in the representative's mouth, but the fact that something is in the United States Code doesn't mean the Constitution allows it, and the point of this resolution is very much so to say that probably that example, among many others, was in fact the kind of overreach that the states are supposed to push back against. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No questions. Thank you. I don't see any other people who wish to speak on this particular HCR, so I'm going to close here at HCR 9. Now at 2 o'clock.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.